To whom much is given, much is required. Part of that requirement is sharing. Culture is the heartbeat within our lives, and it's at the core of so many things. While we live in a time when we are starving for wisdom, I welcome you to your wisdom retreat at Culture Raises Us. I am so pleased to be able to share this gift of a friend in Amanda Williams today, who's going to be able to share a great deal and in her very humble way speak to her influence in helping to shape this, what I call art culture of today, and is a great representative of it, and is an amazing human being. And before I allow her to share her story, Amanda, we always start our sessions with this question, and it's when you hear culture, what does that mean to you?
I think culture for me inherently means creativity, but I think it's expressed globally. People associate their culture with their region or their territory, but I think it's always the expression of whatever creative flavor they have, whether that's food or music, traditions, behaviors, art. So culture for me is always, I think, rooted in that moment of creation, of creativity.
And I love the flavor word that you use there,
Yeah.
because within every culture there is a flavor, there is a vibe of some sort.
Yeah,
I love
definitely.
that.
I mean, even if it's the subset, right? There's always this. It's a little.
Oh, a little shoulder, a little shimmy. I love that.
Oh,
Um,
really?
so now again, as I started, I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a very long time. I'd love for you to share, just a little bit about yourself, your background, a little bit of your journey. Obviously, we're going to go into a ton of other facets of it in detail as we go through the session. But just from you, I'd love to hear, who is A-Dub?
A-Dub is a Chicago-based artist. I'm also originally from Chicago. I trained as an architect. I'm from the South Side, which means a lot to Chicagoans. And I've just spent my life trying to use my creativity to make the biggest impact. So that started with architecture when we met in the Bay Area when I was practicing architecture, and you were there at that pivotal moment when I took the leap without a parachute to do my art full time. And since then, I've been producing um, art across a variety of media, but always with the intent of helping expand people's ideas about what's possible and what's possible for them in terms of the impact that they can make. So sometimes that's paintings, sometimes that's installations or photographs, sometimes that's architecture or space, public art. So it runs the gamut, but it's always with the intent of kind of expanding the way we imagine we can show up in the world.
Yeah. It's so funny, and I say this to many people about when they find out about amazing people like yourself or, other very influential individuals. Nobody gets to see the journey. They just kind of see the end product, right? And even being someone who witnessed your journey, I forget that you ever had a 9-to-5 job. Like, I forgot that time,
Well,
no, in your life when it was like Amanda took that leap. Like you said, no parachute, but you had the parachute. The parachute was a gift
I
of
did.
God that he was unlocking in you to really
Amen.
dig deep into, putting your time and resources into it as you should have. But I forget that you really had like a 9-to-5. Like, you had a job and
I
this is what you were doing on the side until you made it your thing and locked into your purpose.
That's exactly right. I mean, how many people are blessed enough to have a job they like, first of all? There are actually a lot of people that
Man,
don't like what they do, or they're forced to do things for financial reasons to make ends meet, whether that's blue collar or alternative economic systems, as I like to call it. But, I trained as an architect. I loved it. I was in the Bay Area at a moment where work was in abundance, money seemed to be endless. The possibilities were whatever you wanted to make them. Um, and I was working at a firm doing great projects, but really had an opportunity to kind of push beyond that and take some risks. And I look back and think now, I don't know if I would have taken those risks 10 years later, or
Mm,
if I'd entered into the workforce in a different era. So there was something about a perfect storm of all these components that really um, compelled me in that moment to push. But I had a great job. I designed buildings. I hung out with my friends, right? It was a good life. So it wasn't like I was leaving one thing to go to something else, right? It was
right.
more it was about better. It was about more opportunity. And so why
Yeah.
not experiment with that?
Yeah, and it's, I think at that point you were learning the difference between what you can do and what you're called to do,
Yes.
which is great.
Yes.
So you represent a number of cultures for me, because you are, as an individual, a brand yourself. And when I look at you, there's this culture of discipline. There's this
Mhm.
culture of humility, and we'll speak on how those things show through your journey. But from a standpoint of you as Amanda within the art culture, that's the thing
Okay.
I'm really going to hone in on today to kind of speak to your impact there and the impact that you see of our culture. But you, for me, really exemplify this notion of yes and rather than
Hmm.
no but. Um, as you've always kind of blurred the lines between being an artist, as you already talked about, and an architect, which really has always been your lane with your both and, as you talk about, label. I want to ask, what seed was it that you watered to kind of embrace something like this? That's outside of the norm. It's outside of the programming or falling within the box that we're all kind of trained to fall into.
Yeah, so I think you hit it on the head with the idea of what you're good at versus what you're called to do. And so I can remember hearing people saying, "Oh, I was called to the pulpit, or I was called to this," and it's like, "Were you really?" And then there became a point. There became a point where I understood, and it was kind of after the moment where you had done everything you were supposed to do. You
Mm,
know, you're supposed to go to college. You're supposed to get a good job if you get to college. You're supposed to buy a house. Supposed to, like there's a lot of supposed tos. Um, and then there's a moment where you realize that there's something you're supposed to be doing that only you can do.
yeah,
That's why you're here on earth. And so when you understand that, it doesn't mean you know what that is right away. But then it's your responsibility, if you have privilege to be sitting around thinking in this capacity and not surviving every day. You have an opportunity to thrive. It behooves you to really hone in on what that is. So, yes, I'm an architect. Yes, I love art. But what can only I say with those two things as my kind of driving force? And so it really was planting that seed of needing to nurture that singular voice. And it sounds so cliche even as I'm saying it, but it's like there's a million people that can paint. There are a million people that build buildings, whether they're called architects or not, right? So what is Amanda supposed to be doing? And what is that greatest impact? And so it really was planting the seed of kind of standing in that, and then knowing that you just have to, everything you're doing is moving towards that understanding. So once you embrace that, the panic is not there, because
right,
the surf right, the surface concerns are like, how am I going to make a living? Well, what
right,
job is that?
yeah,
Well, who's going to help me? Well, who already did it? What? Well, when you leave all of that alone and you're like, no, you're going to do it and it's going to happen. So let's go. And just one
mm,
foot in front of the other. And so then everything you're doing is just building towards that. Now, maybe it's not linear, or maybe you can't fully understand it, but it's all written, right? And so it really was then just settling down into seeing everything as a kind of nurturing of this gem that's going to rise up.
mm. And one of the words that comes to my mind through that I don't think I heard you say, but I feel it, is this notion of patience. You have to have patience throughout this process, because, like you said, it might not become clear to you immediately. It might take
Yes.
some time. So, how are you patiently waiting, but still putting one foot in front of the other on a consistent basis?
Yes. Patience is great, and that's exactly what it is. I think also the word for me that's always resonated was practice, and I think that
Mm.
also comes from my whatever belief that I was going to be a professional athlete. But the idea that you just practice.
Wait. Let's rewind that. What athlete were we wait, this is
I
good.
was
This is good.
going to the NBA. I was going to the NBA, not the WNBA. There was no WNBA when we
Okay,
were little.
Amanda,
I was
how
going
were we gonna do that? I've never even seen you shoot a
to
jump
Spud
shot.
Ware. Come on.
I'm
If
sorry?
Spud Ware was there,
Oh no, I believe me, I understand that because I'm from the same family of the little yet making it happen. However, A Dub, growing up in in the shy, I guess
in
yeah,
the
you had the most inspiring probably individual in MJ to make you could think you could do whatever.
I mean, every commercial, every shot, every night.
Mm.
We rewind VHS, rewind the tape, watch the shot. Kobe thought he watched the shots. I watched the
You
shots.
watched
I was going to be in the NBA.
that's awesome. I'm sorry.
Um,
I'm sorry. We can get back on track
Luckily,
now.
that did not happen. That did not happen. We have a different path to how we got to our greatness. But I think the notion of practice has always been there for me. And lately, I've been evolving an idea of my studio being called practice-based studio,
Mm.
because I think the idea of practice is both in preparation for something, but is also in and of itself a ritual.
Mm.
And so if you imagine the idea that this is what you're going to be doing no matter what,
Yep.
again, the weight is gone.
Yep.
And so when I made that choice to leave, not only a profession, but one, if you tell somebody I'm an architect, everybody goes, oh. You say I'm an artist, people are like, my
Yeah.
cousin is, yeah, my neighbor's an artist. Like
Right.
that's such a wide range of things, but there's a kind of assumption that there's a level of discipline and patience and practice that goes into a profession.
Right.
So artists call what they do a practice, which was strange to me because it was like, no, a doctor's a practice, a lawyer's a practice, an architect's a practice. If art is a practice, what's that going to look like? And so that's an endurance. So there's a lot of sports parallels about
A ton.
shoot through the drought, right?
A
Shoot through
ton.
the drought, exercise, warm up, free throws, shoot, so that kind of mentality always has been there. And so the patience, yes, is there, but it's also that assumption that you're going to get there. So what are you worried about?
Yep.
It's faith, right? So you can't have the worry and the faith. So you have to do the work.
Faith and fear can't live in the same home at the same time, for sure.
They
But
cannot.
what you just nailed is something that's always so profound to me when you think about there's key principles you can take across multiple disciplines, right? And those they don't change. It's just the artistry is different,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because as
Yeah.
I'm listening to you speak and you're talking about artists, I would say that all, athletes, entertainers are all artists. You all fall within this bubble of artistry.
I agree. I think most people don't see that or don't understand that. It always baffles me because it's just your chosen vessel or medium, but it's all the
Medium,
same.
exactly.
It's all the
Exactly.
same energy, right? And so it really, when you talk about culture too, for me, there's a culture of ballers, right? So I wanted to be a basketballer. Two best friends are guys that went on to D1 sports and played, but I walked around. It was everything. It was
Mm-hmm.
a culture, right? And so that translates to a kind of bravado that you also saw in hip hop that was coming along at the same time. So if you imagine our generation, we have a unique culture of a kind of confidence level that's not based necessarily on anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's based on wanting to show that you've put in the work to produce the thing that's better than everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a competition against yourself. Yes, there's some ciphers or some battles or whatever, but that translates into the mindset, even though visual art and contemporary art is very particular in how its culture operates.
Mm-hmm.
I've benefited from pulling from these other cultures and, like you said, then being a translator in terms of the medium. So I feel like it's an unfair advantage, but
No,
like
no,
those
it isn't an unfair advantage. No, it is not. It's literally you apply the principles that were birthed in you through the sport of basketball and have taken those into your sport of art. The
yes,
various mediums in which you've excelled in, right? And so for me,
Exactly.
it's not baffling, and I'm hoping for others they see that these same principles apply to different areas, right?
Yes.
You can
A
pick up,
writer,
yeah,
musician,
you could pick up
an
the
athlete.
toolbox. You could take your toolbox and apply it to a whole nother thing. And
Yes.
you are a spitting image of that because we never would have seen you on an NBA court. However, you are definitely performing on an NBA level for sure.
Thank
And
you.
and actually, I might retract the first part of my statement is I will throw out there that we will be seeing you on an NBA court because I envision a moment where there's going to be Amanda Williams product visually seen in
Yes.
some sort of stadium. We're manifesting that. Look, the power of our words. We're
Right now.
putting that energy in the universe. The
Put
Chicago
it there.
Bulls may be the first place. We're going to call Don C, who's now the creative director over there, and make this happen because y'all
My
both from the
man, he
Chi.
is so wonderful. Yes, he is awesome.
No, Don
And what
is
a great
amazing.
role.
What
And what a
it's
great role. It's
well,
so
you speak on why
necessary.
you think it's so great.
So I haven't known him that long. I met him, and that's on me because he's a great Chicago cultural treasure. But
And a
this
great human
idea,
being.
and a great human, the idea that the NBA would have this role where this person is coming in and giving creative direction, which ranges from input to the organization, not just about brand, but just about a kind of ethos, but then also reaching not even back, but reaching across parallel to the
Mm,
community. Is
mhm.
constantly helping the players, the organization understand what that is. So he's part of an ecosystem, but he brings an authenticity to it that I think the average person that maybe, yes, they know the Bulls, but they don't understand the efforts that they might be trying to make as an
Right.
organization. He brings that gravitas or that kind of authenticity to what he's doing and hopefully then what that means they're doing.
Agree 1,000%. Agree 1,000%. So, you know, before this comment, you were talking about the different cultures that have influenced you. And I know
Yes.
early in your career, music culture played a key role in your
Huge.
storytelling on your different mediums of choice. I mean, I actually have one of your oil paintings that
Yes.
has a Stevie Wonder inspiration, and it's by far one of my
Yeah.
favorite pieces for a number of reasons. Um, are there other cultures, though, that you are still trying to infuse or represent through your work?
Great question. Um, there are other cultures, twofold, I'm gonna say. One is our ancestors.
Mm,
And so there's a lot of not only untold stories, but there's a lot of stories of Black people in particular, Black Americans, but African diasporic in general, who've already done what we think we can't do. And that story
say
is
that
not.
again.
They've already done what we think we can't do. So whether that's the pyramids, I don't know
Mm,
how the pyramids were built. I studied architecture and I still cannot tell you.
wow.
Lalibela, Ethiopia, right? These are feats, right? But I'm talking about then also everyday things. We have um, a historic number of African Americans who were receiving patents for inventing things just after emancipation and Reconstruction. That's totally buried. And so I stumbled upon this and have become obsessed with this idea that we already gained wealth in these other ways. We already pioneered ways that we could innovate and do things in everyday life, whether it's the ice cream scooper, the water sprinkler. Like I'm talking about everyday things. I'm not talking about astronomical feats of,
Right, right.
it's important too. And we've done those things too. We've been heads of towns. We've incorporated things. We've built portions of spaceships. We've, you name it, we've done it, but there's a way that we forget or it gets minimized. Um, these to what I think are routes of freedom, or at least self-determination. And so if you know that about yourself, you're going to think differently about what's possible
Mm,
right now and
mm.
for your. So that's a culture I'm trying to mine, but it's also then how do you translate that so that the everyday person sees the possibility? So it's one thing to read in, Black History Month. It's like Garrett A. Morgan invented the stop sign in
Right.
18. Right? We all have that, right? But you don't really understand, like, how are these dudes doing this in this era where they had not even an inkling of the access that we have to basic information,
That part.
basic resources, right? And so, and it's the fun and the innovation, though. It's not just the practical. So that's one culture that I feel like I'm wanting to tap into and mine a little bit more. Then another is because I'm an architect, I make a lot of stuff, right? So the materials are really important,
Mm.
even in something like paint. And so where do you turn to better understand craft? So whether that's indigenous folks or whether that's ancient histories of people that mastered aquifers or things that you just take and you're like, why does the water work when you turn it on? I don't
Right.
know. So not the science or the kind of nerdy engineering part, but like way back to the first person that was like, you know what? We need water. I don't want to go over there no more. So how are we going to get to this? Like, again, what's that energy that made somebody decide they were going to figure out how to bring water to the inside of your house, or you didn't have to go to the well, you're going to come to it. So a lot about craft or kind of, again, that discipline, that practice. But what are these ways that then can enhance my creativity on the level of beauty? So
Mhm.
yes, it's functional, but how do I take that and bring it to the everyday person? Because sometimes it feels overwhelming if you hear somebody describing these things or talking about those things. Like, how do you make it for the everyday person? So they're like, I could do that. Yeah, you invented. Okay, I can do that. I can
Mhm.
fly.
Right.
I can fly. Right? Like we are so acclimated to these feats. We one think it's not that big of a deal, and two that we can't do something equally impressive.
That's right.
So a lot of art is trying to just remind people that they're already the experts in a lot of these things.
Wow. You said a lot, A-Dub. And no, but in such a big, powerful way in terms of the freedom of your thought right now, of what you're looking to explore, I think is a total reflection of you stepping into your purpose,
Mhm.
and being given the tools to even think it. So often we are programmed to not even think that big, that that detailed, that intentional. And
Yeah.
for you to be in that space, I'm so appreciative because I know the value you're going to bring and have brought to making a better world for my daughters and those who look like them, coming
Mhm.
thereafter. So it's great to hear you pushing the envelope of the next type of culture you want to infuse in what it is you do and challenge. And there's no level of complacency that you are showing with all that you've already achieved, and we haven't even checked those boxes just yet, which is really a beautiful thing to me to hear from you. But I'm not surprised, just knowing the type of human being you are. But from my naive eyes, I've watched how art has kind of started to kind of infuse its way into shaping culture from, having moments like Art Basel becoming, a cultural moment on the calendar, to so many individuals now, from very diverse backgrounds becoming collectors of art. Um,
Mhm.
with your involvement within the art world, was there a moment that you remember clearly when art, and in particular Black art,
Mhm.
started to play a significant part in influencing youth culture or the culture as we know it today?
Yes. The short answer is yes. I'm thinking of a couple of moments um that are sort of inflection points and then also personal moments that were like,
Nice.
oh, this is important. So I think your audience probably is going to clearly understand that graffiti
Mm,
is a key moment where art rises up as clearly a part of the culture and completely accessible. But if you think about it, it's incredibly abstract. Like it's hard to read glyphs.
mm-hmm.
We're used to it because we came of age with it,
That's
right? But
right.
it's like if you just look at it, you're like, it's intentionally difficult to read, right? It's coded
Mm-hmm.
in its form making, and then you felt some type of way because you could read that was so and so, or you knew that was so and so's tag, right? So there was a way in which that was infused, and then when you go back and you look at, those early music videos and MTV, everything about the visual culture created such a strong visual acumen. So there's even, disciplines or academic studies, visual literacy. So you know this through branding, right? There's a way in which we have an entire generation from ourselves on that are so in tune and acute to typeface,
Mm-hmm.
color selection. Like these are things you studied for decades to put through, mostly through advertising. But this is an acumen that 3-year-olds have, where they can understand graphic user interface. Like that's all a result to me of that moment where culture really, especially visual arts culture, was like, oh. So there's also then segues into when it starts being real money.
Okay. Speak on
Right?
that.
We're talking about serious money. These are assets and they don't depreciate.
That's right.
So
That
do you
part.
want an A-dub or do you want a new, Tesla? I think you're going to go with the A-dub.
I want an A-dub. I want about 5 more A-dubs. Look, a closed mouth does not get fed, by the way. Just go ahead.
Yeah, and you have a lot of mouths. We're gonna work on it.
Yeah.
So you saw that rise, but then you saw Black artists in particular being excluded from that.
Yes.
So then you see within the last maybe 20 years, this kind of exponential prolific rise. There have always been cycles of Black artists being kind of the moment. But we're talking about these dollars that are serious dollars, talking about 7 figures for art now, right? And so it shifts the way we understand the power that we have within the culture. So it goes from just being excited to being in the room to now fast forward to my peers who are making decisions. And then our peers, other aspects of the art world, of the creative world, as we said, these other cultures, music, entertainment, they get it. So you've got the Dean collection. You've got Jay-Z and Beyonce, right? You have these folks that are doubling down on not only this as a viable financial vehicle, but a propelling of the culture.
Empowerment.
They understand the significance of what it means, not just to brag amongst themselves. You got an A-dub? You got an A-dub? No. To also propel this forward, because then they're going to be the holders of the artifact.
Which add more value.
Adds more value.
The artifact and the artist.
It tells a story, right? And God forbid we collaborate.
Say that one more time, louder for the people in the back and even the front who heard it the first time but didn't make a move on it. But please say that one more time.
And all of you in the back.
Yeah. Say it again, please.
Collaborate in real time. Collaborate in real time, right? And so I can remember my husband, who is a former professional athlete, not an artist. He's now fully understanding how the art ecosystem works. He's driving. He calls me one day. Black Thought just said Kerry James Marshall. So he knows Kerry James Marshall.
Okay.
And he knows of Black Thought. And the idea that one of his favorite rappers would casually throw into his flow the name of one of his favorite artists. It's like mind-boggling, right? Because it's not this obscure other world. Now that it's not graffiti, it's contemporary art in a way that maybe is not visually as accessible.
That's right.
But these people are important. And now you realize that you're still having an influence on other people's creativity in this way. So that was I can remember that moment where it was like, okay, so now we're rapping about visual artists. Okay, this is what we're doing? Okay. All right. We got some stuff we can do then.
That's right.
If we have that kind of level of significance to these other entertainers who are household names in a way that visual artists typically are not. So you're seeing that continuing to evolve. And I would say that within my own landscape, the ability in real time to be influencing people coming right behind me didn't register because I'm not really on social media that often. I'm not really in the internets I'm not in these internet streets. And so I just didn't understand how prolific, my work was and how wide of an audience it was garnering. Until you got young people coming up to you like, oh, I loved your, not only the work, right, but I loved your interview with so-and-so. It's like, that was recorded. It's like
right.
There's a way that kind of archive is building upon itself in real time. So we have that we're reaching this way and that way at the same time.
Right. Yes.
So I'm able to interface with my peers across music, sports, entertainment, and then also be influencing the generation so that in real time, these connections are coming together. So that's kind of blowing my mind in this moment that all of that can be happening while majority of my energy is spent towards making the work.
No, I love it. But when you talked about the influence that you have on others who are watching, that's very much an Amanda superpower of your humility. I love the purity of your humility. You've always been that person who never, I don't want to say acted a way of understanding your power and how much it influences people. You were there is a naivete, or there is a
Yeah,
naiveness to you, which I
yeah,
truly love, appreciate, and value, because I think that allows you to be your even more true, giving, purposeful self,
yeah.
which is awesome. So stay that way. I'm talking to you like I'm talking to my
Yeah.
daughters. Please stay
A
in that
quiet
pure.
noise. Gotta quiet the noise. You know what
You
I
have
mean? Like
to.
it's tough,
It's
but you
very
gotta do
tough.
it.
It's very tough. And I've fanned out over you for years. And I mean, I could even remember back as you were talking about our Bay Area days. When you had a piece of your work in Union Square, which at that point I thought, oh,
That was
she
it. That's it.
she done made it. She done made it to the top. We got one. We got one. But then in typical Amanda fashion, you continue to raise the bar of excellence. And then I had the honor of seeing your exhibition at the Chicago Museum of Modern Art, MoMA. Like really?
Yeah.
And this was one, I think you featured your color theory project, where you painted the 8 houses that were slated for demolition and were painted kind of based off of memories from your childhood, and kind of showed the contrast between reality of what was happening in the community with moments of your joy and humor, which was amazing. And I'm just excited to see, so what bar do you raise next? And I'm really intrigued
Yeah.
on what inspires you to kind of continue to create the level that you do and move across the mediums, the
Mhm,
way that you do. What is that?
mhm. I mean, it's interesting we talk about culture because it really, like, I really took to heart when everybody started saying for the culture. I thought
Yeah.
everybody was serious, and they were not. I'm serious, right? Like,
Shh.
I need everybody to win
Wow.
because I need the culture to elevate, especially now we have kids. I need things to be better.
And
So it's for the culture. Like, so I'm tireless about trying to do things that are going to elevate not only the culture, but everybody's expectations about what they can do
that part.
for the culture.
Nice.
It's like critical. And so I have a skill set where I can go across media.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a friend whose brother's a pastor, and he says his favorite statement is, "I have a mind to do it."
Yes.
So I joke all the time, but I'm serious. Like, I got a mind to do you got a mind to do it. So if I can't do it, I am relentless about finding the expert on whatever that is. A few years ago, I decided I needed to make a Black Lives Matter tea set
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like that's where we needed to have some difficult conversations. We needed this Black Lives Matter tea set. What was it going to look like?
Right.
What would it feel like? What kind of tea are we drinking in it? And so I was just scouring the earth until I found the right partner to collaborate with, who was an expert in ceramics, to help me make this thing. So when I don't have the skill set myself, then I don't want to take a class and learn. I'm going straight to the masters and apprenticing right away, and we're doing this stuff in real time. So for me, there's usually the question, and then I'm using whatever medium necessary to get to that answer.
And
And then in the obvious media, photography, painting, then that's just continuing to push to make sure that the craft is better, because people are receiving the work, but then what is going to really, it's not necessarily about keeping them coming back, but what is going to compel them to keep looking,
right.
to keep, right, to keep trying to find themselves in the work that they're making, right? I love it. Your piece is one of my favorites. There are 4 or 5 others from that era where I use a lot of lyrics in particular, right? But a lot of writing.
Mm-hmm.
I love when people call and they're like, I've been looking at this for 12 years and I just saw in the corner
That part.
that you had this bar,
Another
or
element of discovery. Yep.
just heard this song and didn't realize that that was that song, and it's been sitting on the wall the whole time. Like, that's that gift, right, that keeps giving. And so what are ways I can do that with color, with texture, with form, with
Mm-hmm.
material, right? And so I'm constantly pushing in that way. I was honored recently with being named a MacArthur Genius.
Jeez.
So when you're deemed a genius, But what do you just lay down and that's it? What do you do?
Well,
So
elaborate on that for those of us who aren't so familiar with it. Very powerful word you said there of
yes.
genius. Give some context on this.
So the MacArthur Foundation is a philanthropic organization uh, who really pushes their theme is a more just and verdant world, and
Okay.
so they really scour all corners of the globe to try to find individuals or organizations that are really pushing in whatever their field is to realize a better tomorrow, a better today, the best of themselves. And so each year, they name a class of MacArthur Fellows who've now been dubbed geniuses over the
Mhm.
course of several years. And so this is completely anonymous.
Eh,
So you don't know you've been nominated. You don't know you're going to win. And they
Wow.
literally call you and they're like, so we have something to tell you. So people that know what it is, when you get that call, you're like, oh my God.
Wow.
And if you don't know, then they explain, right? And so as part of it, you get $800,000 unrestricted funding to do whatever you want with. So that
Love
could
that.
be
Love that.
buy a yacht, take a trip in outer space, whatever you want to do, sleep,
Right.
give it all. You
Right.
can do whatever you want. And so that kind of affirmation from what ultimately is your peers, because the people that are nominating you in secret have some expertise in your field. And I'm
Correct.
talking about across the discipline. So this year's class, there's artists, there are astrophysicists, there are community workers, so it ranges the gamut. These are all people making this kind of long-term impact. And so that kind of acknowledgement just also fuels you. It's like obviously you're doing it right.
That's right. That's right.
Keep going. But it's also important, I think, to not confuse that with grind culture,
Mm.
which I'm also a product of, right? Where it's like, I stayed up all night, you
Right.
know, well, we went 4 days, we busted the album out in 72 hours. Like that's not sustainable either.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so you got to find a way to balance that level of creativity and prolificness that you want to have with like, you got to be here.
Uh-huh.
You can't, we don't get redos on life. So you got to slow it down also and take care of yourself in that capacity.
Right. And so, uh, you know, I want to applaud you for your genius, award that you were given. I'm
Thank
not
you.
surprised. And it was interesting because right before you said that, you said something that I thought was very genius that a number of people overlook at times when you're talking about crossing different mediums of ensuring that whatever areas you're deficient in, you seek out the assistance, the expertise, the partnership of
Yes.
those who are. Because some would, again, they look at you from the outside. Oh, she's got it all together. She's got it all figured out. She knows all things. She's doing this on her own. If anybody thinks they're doing this thing called life on their own, they are truly, sadly mistaken.
Yes.
Everything takes a village to some capacity. And your statement and the way in which you said it is a true reflection of that. And it's okay as a genius and as a leader to be able to step out and tap those who have the expertise in areas that you may be deficient in, to continue to be great in what it is you do. And there's nothing that takes away from that. And I think, that's a great segue into, God obviously plays a very, very key role, I think, in your life. And he's a multiplying God as opposed to a God of addition, right? Um, can you remember a time when God kind of multiplied on a situation that you never would have thought could be as big or impactful when you were just coming from a place of addition? Like 5 + 5 is supposed to be 10. For some reason, this went to 25
Yes.
because of my multiplying God.
I think it was the project that you just referenced that's in MoMA's collection is color theory. So, I was here and again in that moment where you're trying to make sense of exactly what it is you're supposed to be doing. So I have this gift of architecture, I have this gift of art, I have this city that I love, and I'm for the culture. And these neighborhoods are looking the same. And so what is going on? I did what I was supposed to do. I went and learned how to be an architect. So now, and now I'm here and look, is still looking the same. And so it was this moment where I just decided that I was going to, and I'm condensing it, but this moment I was going to paint these houses, and the houses were going to be ultra sheen. It'll be pink whale moisturizer. They're going to be currency exchange. They're going to be Crown Royal bag. So there was a color that I understood. There's a space that I understand. And I'm just trying to infuse it with something to disrupt. So can the disrupt be a little humorous? Can it be a little joyful? Can it be very loud? Can it be colorful? Can it be at this scale? And it was one of the first times ever that I didn't know what I thought the outcome was going to be. So in addition to this idea of a multiplier and not an addition, formulas, you know the outcome. You plug in this and this, and it gives you this. We talking about calculus or something beyond. We talking about some applied math I didn't even know I knew, right? And so when I started to do this, because I do have the benefit of all of these cultures, all of these histories, they're now flowing through me as muscle memory, as a vessel, right? And so it didn't matter that I didn't understand exactly what pieces were coming from where and what the brilliance was of putting these components together. As soon as I did it, other people received it. Yeah, it's the pink oil house. So now you have people swearing that I own the pink oil house. Like I don't own the house. It was illegal. So I'm painting these houses that are going to get demolished illegally. And I'm going to Home Depot with my pink oil moisturizer bottle. And lady's like, is this for a baby's room? What are you doing with all this paint? It's like 10 gallons of pink oil moisturizer, right? I don't know what the color is called at Home Depot, but it is not pink oil moisturizer. But forever now in Chicago, in this era, the house that was on LaSalle was the pink oil moisturizer. The house was there since the 1800s. But suddenly people were like, you know Amanda's house, you know Amanda's pink oil house. I don't want any of that. But there was a way that I took ownership, the self-determination, right? The leadership, the vision, to pull these pieces together to communicate something I didn't even understand. And then it took off without me. It was gone. It was South Africa. It was the Historic Preservation Group. It was branding. It was color activators or whoever decides what the color of the year is going to be. All these people were coming at me. How did you know? This is so expert. You're this. You're right. MoMA. New York Times named it one of the 25 most significant projects in post-war architectural history.
Jeez.
Like, it's like almost to the moon. Like, I can't even understand the magnitude and the impact that this one gesture with this one question had on the world.
Right.
But it came to your point. It came from this kind of genuineness, this walk that was sure that I'm going the way I'm supposed to be going, even if I don't know
That's right.
what that is.
That's right. And then again, you continue to push the envelope, and then your latest project of redefining redlining is a project that calls attention to the efforts of redlining, the practice of systematic discrimination based on where someone lives. So I mean, I kind of know the answer, but it's pretty safe to say that you're definitely using your voice and your gift to help awareness for necessary change.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, I'm also fortunate to be part of an era of artists, Black artists in particular, but in Chicago, across the kind of lens of Latinx, Indigenous artists as well, who are taken seriously as shapeshifters. So we are changing policy. Yes, we're making art, and that's beautiful from a standpoint of awareness, but we also are able to sit in the rooms with elected officials and advise on policy.
That's right.
And demand changes. So there's protest is great. There's awareness is great. There's art for art's sake, that's great. But when I can navigate all of the systems that keep people of color from having basic things like a house, when I can navigate the complexity of why that's still almost impossible right now, to get access to land, to get permission to do certain things, to use my resources to purchase tulip bulbs from Holland, to bring them together with some kids from the neighborhood high school, to shape out the houses that should still be standing, to get the historic photographs from the Chicago History Museum. All of this is right here at our fingertips. I've not done anything special. I've not gotten any special anything, right? This is leveraging everything that's right here, but been created in a way that either makes us think or actually is difficult to pull together. And so the artist is the dot connector. So now all these folks come together from these different constituencies, different cultures, elected officials, educators, teens, architects, florists, urban agriculturists, artists, friends of mine that I have nothing else to do on Saturday. Everybody coming together, planting 100,000 tulips in the shape of 18 houses and apartment buildings that should still be there.
Yeah.
Right? So once again, it hasn't, so these won't bloom until April or May. I already know from that past experience the magnitude this is going to have to transform everything from kids being like, soil remediation.
Yeah.
Why did you have to plant more soil? How come the soil there wasn't house? Well, we can live here. Somebody used to live here. My cousin lived here. I didn't even know my next door neighbor was a so-and-so.
Yeah.
Right? Like all those kinds of conversations happen in that activity, in that craft, in that planting. So that's already done. The for your metaphor earlier about the planting of the seed, the propagation of that, the gift of that, the beauty of that. You imagine how it's going to smell? You know, what it's going to look like? Kids that cut across those lots to go to school, it is going to be so outside of anything they've ever seen. What is he going to plant as a seed for them to imagine they can?
That's right. That's right.
Because it's like walking in outer space, right? It's like, and why would this lady do this? She doesn't own this land.
That's right.
Tulips are going to die in 2 weeks. They might come back next year, right? Like all of this is a return on an investment I can't see. And so you have to, again, have faith that the investment is there. So if one child decides they're going to do one thing they never would have thought of before, well, success.
So,
right?
That was going to be my next question. What does success look like? And it's going to look different for everybody.
Yeah. Yes. But my success is I know that this has planted all those seeds, and the impact of that is so much more than speaking at schools. Not that I don't do those things too, right? But the impact of me going to some school and being like, you can do anything but your mind to, or they can walk and be like, this lady planted these, I don't know, and then she came to our school and was hanging out with us. I don't know why she was doing that. Like just the disruption of the expectation of how things are supposed to go is one of the most powerful gifts I think we can give to our young people. Very powerful,
right? Because we have to set the example of what's possible. You know, I look back even on my journey when I left Nike because Bobby had an opportunity to be on Broadway, right?
Yes.
Our oldest daughter.
We talk about it in our house weekly.
Right, because it inspired your littles like it inspired so many others, but it would have been easy to stay within the confinement of the programming that I'm supposed to stay in my corporate job that's doing really well at an amazing company. Right. And your daughter, unfortunately, shouldn't be able to get that opportunity because y'all don't live in New York and you're working. But I said, no, there's a bigger disruptive nature here of what God's trying to do. And the platform is much bigger for her to inspire a much larger group that I need to take a step aside from what it is I'm doing to pour in and support this 100%. So it's coming back to your point of setting the example because A-Dub, while yes, that was great for my daughter and all those she got to inspire, there were a number of people who also were watching me leave to do something that was different outside of the norm, but purposeful. And it gave them the seed of, wait, it's possible for me to do the same thing with this thing that I've been thinking on or this thing that I've been grappling with whether I should do or I shouldn't. Right?
Yes.
It's the power of an example. Stepping out and doing is way bigger than just us. It's about the significance and the value we're bringing to others to show that these things are possible.
Yes. Yes. And the steps are not as important as the mindset to take the risk.
Boom.
Right? So Jason and I, my husband Jason and I talk all the time about growth mindset, about a mindset. And so we use you constantly as the example of like, no, you don't understand. There seemed to be nothing better than the life they had for their family. This is what they imagined they would do for their children.
That's it.
Beautiful home, nice jobs, you all have a great ecosystem, right? But then there's an opportunity to do more, but it
Mm,
requires the mindset to be beyond what you already had imagined was possible, right?
mm,
And so that's the power. We don't see very many people that do that. And then when
mm,
the success is there, everybody can nod and give high fives. But it was the mindset to have the kind of vision to take the risk.
mm.
The result is almost like that's what happens. It's like, of course she was going to go to Broadway. Of course she's going to go back. Of course she's going to do more. That's just the given now, right? It was the
Right.
mindset that is what we have to stay in order to get there.
I love it. The mindset. Do you have a mission statement for what you do?
I do not, but I need one.
Nah, I think you do, and you just haven't pulled it. You because there's so many elements. I mean,
That's right.
this mindset piece that you just tapped into, I might think could be a big part of your mission statement
Yeah.
because that this mindset has shown itself in every chapter that you've spoken about thus far. It was a mindset commitment that you
Yes.
made for sure. And I'm looking into say like, okay, so how does A-Dub want her work to be remembered? Is it the work? Is it the mindset? Is it the stories behind it?
Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, I think initially I just imagined that, I can literally remember this conversation I was having with two other classmates of mine, Hiromi Ogawa and Jatiki Gunter. We had all just quit our jobs at the same time in the Bay Area. And I said, it would just be great if a museum would collect my art. Can you imagine? So this is like this is the end. This is the end.
Yeah,
Now I'm sitting here, I'm like, MoMA,
man.
Smithsonian,
Look,
artists.
yeah,
Blah, blah,
yes, and
blah.
dancing through it. Yes, exactly.
In a way, right? Paths I could not have imagined. Um, but so now what is that? That's forever. Like I think there was some form you have to fill out when they're, doing the final acquisition. And it says something like, in 100 years, can we replace the images if the photographs have faded? And that's when I start sobbing. You realize, like,
Man,
this is lit 100 years. Wait a minute.
100
In 100
years.
years from now? Like, what? What? Like, so that is a legacy that will live on, right? Like, I'm cemented in art history in that kind of way. But to your point about a mindset, I think that will also, I just have a feeling it's also an era. It's
Mhm.
not like we're the first era, right? But you're seeing these kind of cycles that probably happen in 100-year spurts or 50-year spurts where you just see a kind of collective ethos that people are operating in. And so I feel like I'm a part of that, and I also will be mentioned in those circles and
I
in
agree.
that way.
I agree, 1000%. And so, as you talk about, a little bit the future for the next generation of future artists, what would you tell them that you kind of wish somebody would have told you a little earlier in your journey? Is there something?
Have more fun, have fun. Although this generation, they don't have a problem with fun. But I do think the message also is that, and I can't put it quite into words. I was on a panel and was trying to convey this idea of like just keep doing you. That
Mhm.
sounds so reductive, but like keep doing you because now more than ever, they have a feedback loop that's instant. And so it's overwhelming.
Mhm.
Right? It's like as soon as they do something, everybody sees it and everybody comments. And then that
Mhm.
influences what they have to, it's not about a grind, but it's about a nose down and like just do it. Just really be in tune with what that purpose is, what that singular purpose that you are here on earth to do. And if you don't know, that means you're not doing enough stuff.
Uh-huh.
That
Agree.
means you're not doing enough stuff, right? Like honor whatever you think is not a big deal and lean into it. Our oldest daughter, she reads like 1,000-page books. She's 11. And
Jeez.
it's like, what is she doing? And she says, well, that's not useful. I mean, nobody got a job for reading.
Yep.
It's like, are you kidding? Not are there like 1,000 jobs you could have, right? But like, I don't know what that is like. I can't do that. Like, so
Right.
I don't know what that's like.
No.
So you just got to lean into that, and why you have that capacity will make itself apparent. So
Exactly.
we
Exactly.
try to provide as many things
books
as
and
possible,
things.
and exposure to like other people to do that. And this
That's right.
person is, and this person is of that, and this person is of this, right? So I think if I could tell young artists, visual artists in particular, like really get on your craft. So maybe I don't know every single medium, but you better believe I'm an expert in multiple ones. And I
Man.
dig down constantly to regenerate that. So I think they have to just, they gotta dig in.
So what's your why?
I don't know. You asked me that, I feel like 20 years ago, and I didn't have an answer. And I just been working past it to figure it out. What is my why?
And I asked that because, a wise young lady always says to me, when you know your why, you never lose your way. And I don't think you're losing your way at all. You're getting sharper in your way. So so
I
what's
mean,
that
just
why?
work. I mean, it really does keep coming back to the for the culture. Right? Like I just feel like it was such a great it's such a great colloquialism because it's like, what is the point? And so I know there's other translations and manifestations of that, whether people are it's a calling from God or whether it's a passion. We have these discussions all the time about passion, but the why really is like because it has to be better. We like
Hmm.
just feel like why am I existing if it's not trying to make everything better? And so the why for me just keeps coming back to that that compulsion I feel to make things better. That's the why. I still have yet to, and I've grown okay with the idea that maybe I'll never be able to articulate it in some like really great sentence. Obviously my actions are describing it, but I can't put it into words any other way than that, right? That it's really about like, don't you want today to be better than yesterday? Don't you want tomorrow to
Man,
be better than today? Like, so it just keeps the drive going to use my best self to do that. And so I wake up every day like that. There's no day I don't wake up
I love it.
without that as the way I'm thinking about the world, no matter what is going on. And, it's a lot going on
A lot going on. So
right now.
we always like to kind of close with, what are the three seeds you would want to leave for the stewards of culture moving forward? If there were three seeds that you could say, these are three, and I don't want to say most important things, but just on your heart, you feel are the things you'd want to leave, what would those be for this next generation to kind of manage the culture or culture as we know it in the best way possible moving forward?
Yes. The three seeds I think are vision. Always have vision beyond what you can see. So that's maybe
Re-
only Stevie Wonder, but you have vision beyond what you can see. Um, a second is it's going to sound very trite, but be kind.
Mm.
Show some grace.
That's it.
We need a lot of that. We need to plant a lot of seeds of grace and kindness. Um, and then I think that last one is what's this? I want one word. I want that perfect word that captures this. The last one is make it happen. Like make it happen. Like do it. Those are the three for me. I want you to have vision beyond what you can see. I want you to have grace and kindness, and I want you to make it happen. I don't want an excuse. It's Debbie Allen meets Stevie Wonder meets I don't know what. Like, make it happen. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about the hiccups. Let's
Well,
go.
guess what? Guess what, A-Dub, you are a perfect example of your three seeds. So if that is what you are looking for the stewards of, culture moving forward to take with them, I would ask that you continue to be the human being that you are, because you literally have exceeded expectations on all three of those seeds, and you are consistent across all three of those seeds. Vision, your kindness is second to none, and your grace, and you have and will continue to make it happen and have a cheerleader squad that is going to continue to grow and have original founding members like myself. But
Part of
I
part of
will
it.
just, that's right, I'm one of the original board members. I will say that you literally are an example of those three seeds. So you continue to do you, and the next generation is going to have something to reference in a very clear way of what all those things mean. And for that, I love you and I thank you. You're an amazing, amazing human being.
Wow. Well, thank you for having me. This is a wonderful conversation to have with you and a great platform. I'm so excited to hear this and other conversations. So thank you for your vision and your
Thank you,
friendship.
A
Thank
Dub.
you.
I appreciate you.
All right.